Hey family, it's Tasha, Mama Bear Homestead. So today I'm going to bring you a list. So I do some lists on my other channel, Mama Bear Prepping, where I do lists for preparedness. Today, this is kind of a list, but it's also just a discussion of things to think about when you're brand new to homesteading. You're brand new to a piece of property and you're thinking you want to make this place a homestead. You want to make it self-sufficient. You have that in your mindset that that's the goal for where you live. This can be an urban house with a backyard, a normal sized backyard that's fenced in. I don't care where you live. This can be done anywhere, okay? And then this goes, obviously, if you've got some land, you bought some land, you bought a house, this works, okay? And this is just my 2 cents. I'm super excited to hear what people have to say in the comments. This is basically 10 projects, if you will, or things to think about when you first get that piece of property or you get that that house and you're like, I'm gonna handle this. Okay, so first thing I have is, and let me just make sure I have 10. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. I do. Okay, because there was a minute there I didn't. So the first thing I would be thinking about is perimeters. You know, some people might think, well, why would you think about perimeters first, security first? I'm really big on security, but this is more of security from predators. It can be from neighbors, but in the process of your perimeters, remember the idea, if you're thinking about homesteading, is probably to have a garden. It's probably to have some other items that you don't necessarily want people to see or be able to easily get to. This is about having animals, and so it becomes protecting them from other predators, from other animals, right? And so perimeters are important. And so think about your perimeters. Think about levels of perimeters, right? So maybe a small fence around your immediate garden area or area outside your house where your kids can still go out. Your kids or grandkids can go out and play in the grass, throw a football around. But where are your different areas? And what's your outside fence or your outside fence, you know, and what are you planting around those fence lines, you know, as far as keeping people out, blackberry bushes, other bushes with thorns, having gates, basically making it not easy to just walk right up to your house, right? Whether that's people or, more importantly, animals and wildlife, that type of thing, okay? And this could become way more important depending on how far you are in your livestock, right? When it comes to how much do you have, because some people might already be established and have cows and horses, and you have goats and you have, you know, ducks, and so you have all these different pens, and essentially that's what you're doing, right? Wherever you have these animals put up at night, whatever, you've got your mini perimeters for these animals already. And so all I want you to think about, a project to think about, is perimeter, what that means. Does it need to be put up? Do you already have fence lines? Do you already have perimeters? Do you need to put some up? Do you need to fix some? Do you need to start doing your other boundaries as far as bushes or whatever? Is there gates to be fixed? And figuring out what that looks like for you and your journey on this homestead. Next thing I have is layout. You know, where are you going to put everything? I think this is very important to figure out now. Now, if you have 40 acres, people are like, okay, sky's the limit. I still think it will behoove you to understand where you're going to put certain things. Where are you going to put the greenhouse? Where are you putting the chickens? Where are you putting the ducks, the goats? Where are you putting your gardens, your garden boxes, your greenhouse? Where is all this stuff going? Where's the shed going? Where's your fuel going to be at? Where is your wood going to be kept at? Where are all the things going to be kept at? Maybe you have certain animals that are indoors or outdoors. Where are they going to be at? Is there structures that you have to build still? Where are you keeping livestock? Feed, you know, depending on what animals you have, that might be a hardcore situation of where you're keeping feed and keeping it dry at. So super important, your layout, right? Your composting. Where are all the things supposed to go that you have? Okay, that's important. That's even more important if you are like us and you only have a half an acre. Really planning it out where you're going to put stuff, because at the one day we're going to be at max capacity. We're not going to be able to get certain animals. There's certain animals we can't get now, right? But there's a lot you can do, and there's a lot we can do, and there's a lot of animals we can get, but we have to be smart about our layout and where we want stuff, so we can fit all the key pieces to a homestead and being self-sufficient and eventually building it for off-grid successful. Okay, next thing I have is water setup. Now I know a lot of people might be like, water setup, homesteading, I've never heard anybody talk about water setup. What features do you have on your property already for water? Okay, Now, again, if this is an urban place and you're like, look, I have a backyard. I don't have sprawling springs. I don't have, a pond. I don't have a well. Okay, I would venture, maybe you're on city. That's water. How else can you? Do you live somewhere where it rains and it's legal to collect rainwater? Collect rainwater. Get your barrel set up. Get your system set up. Get them set up for the animals. Get them set up off the house. Get them set up, whatever. Maybe you have a cistern that you're going to be filling up with rainwater and have a filtering system on it. But get your water situation done, right? Think off grid. Think if you don't have power that you have a way to get that power. Now, if you have sprawling lands and you have a pond and you have this, and you have make sure that you have access to that water grid down, right? If it's a pond, fine, but do you have a way to make that water even safe to drink? I would still venture you need rain catchment stuff. I would venture that if you have a well already, you need a way when the power goes down to get that water out of that well. Maybe you have land like us and you can do some digging and see if you can, how soon it is you hit water and you can do a small shallow well. Is that a possibility in a grid down situation, no water situation? What are your opportunities? Do you have the right tools to do that? But think about water in general and stack it. A lot of people that live in a homestead, I have a well, that water's gonna last forever. I've got a spring. I don't need to stack water. But what happens if you get to the point where we have some sort of disaster with a bomb, whatever the case may be, we have fallout and you need to stay indoors for weeks and weeks, possibly months, and you don't have access to that water anymore. So you've got to have emergency water in your home, on your homestead, in the garage, in the basement, in the home, whatever. You've got to have access to water that you've actually bought and stored, or you've gotten containers, filled it with your tap water or your well water, treated it, and you have it sitting somewhere ready for access in barrels and whatever. Okay. So water setup, that might be a weird one for some people who are just like, looking right now for, hey, 10 projects for your homestead. Water setup is important and it's overlooked, highly overlooked. Okay. My next thing I have is your first egg producer, right? Now, for a lot of people, this is just chickens, right? It's the easiest thing to get, but you want to get them going, and you want to get them going fairly soon, because it depends on if you get chickens that are already egg producing or if you get chicks. If you get chicks, realize it's months and months and months before they're laying eggs for you. So get the chicks. Especially if you've never done this, I think it's beneficial and important for you to get chicks, to learn the process of chickens, chicks, the difference between pellets and roosters, and knowing that process, learning how to take care of them, finding their home, learning about their food, how the food and water is going to work out. I think there's a lot to be learned, and it's important to get them when they're little and just you're constantly learning about the process. But I think it's important that once you have a homestead, to figure out what's going to be your first egg producer. Getting that going, get that bird and get it going. And this could be quails, this could be ducks, this could be other animals. It doesn't have to be chickens. It's just, I think chickens are the most natural progression into, if you've never taken care of like livestock, you have pets. It's not that you're going to kill anything, but your first kind of livestock, stay outside type of animal, and learning about that. And chickens tend to be that, but you want to get it going, because again, if you get them as chicks, it takes a while for them to start laying. So for your first egg producer, and I say first because the idea, ideally, if you're doing a homestead, is you would be introducing other animals later. Okay. Like us, we're not going to stop at just chickens. Okay. Next thing I have is garden layout. You should have already kind of worked this through of where you want stuff with your layout. I have garden, and then the next one I have is your greenhouse, right? The garden layout is important because you don't have to do everything all at once, but having the layout and know long-term game what your plan is, and then just starting with your few boxes, whatever that season you think you can handle, getting that going, getting it going with the stuff that your family eats, and get that garden going. The next thing I have was greenhouse. Greenhouse is a huge project. It's like, do you build one or do you buy one? You can buy a kit, you can buy plans and build one yourself. But where is it going to go? What size do you think you need? What plants do you think you'd have in there? What is your ultimate goal going to be for it? Like for me, we have a lot of tropical type plants that in this area, maybe during spring and summer would be okay outside, but for winter, absolutely have to be indoors. So it's a matter of having room for all those tropical plants that have tropical fruits, my lemon trees, my lime trees, my orange trees, those types, they have to come indoors, right? And seed starting, seed starting hasn't been very successful for me indoors. So this last year, I realized I direct sowed almost everything that was outside, unless it was a transplant that I bought somewhere. I bought at a local farmer's, and I planted seedlings being started indoors and then planted outside. Failed every single time for me. But maybe seedlings started outside in a greenhouse might work. And this depends on where you're at, what zone you're at, what growing zone you're at, and what you can grow. And, some people, they need a very large greenhouse because the majority of their growing is happening in that for them to grow year round, right? And they have actual food growing in there so that they can continue to have things because they have much longer, winters or much longer frost time or whatever the case may be, okay? Next thing I have is your harvest and preservation plan. It takes a lot of thought process to think about when is stuff supposed to be harvested, and then when it's supposed to be harvested, more importantly, your plan for preservation, right? So getting all your jars, if you've never preserved food before, getting your jars, your lids, your processors, right? Your systems, okay? Your food preservation systems, like your dehydrator, your water bather pan, your pressure canner, whatever, all the things you need to make food preservation fun and easy. But you have to have that plan, you have to have the plan of, okay, this is going to be harvested. Then how do I plan to do it? How do I plan to preserve it? Maybe it's more than one way, and taking care of that and doing that so that you're not losing food and you're getting that shelf stable, going. This includes where are you putting all this food that you're preserving? Where is the spot? Do you have the shelves? Is it something you built, right? You did some built-in shelves. What does it look like? Where's your root cellar for the stuff you harvest that you need to maybe dry out some more, like your onions and your garlic? Where do you keep your root cellar type stuff, all your root vegetables, right? Where's that cool place? So the layout of inside, wherever you're going to keep this food, is very important, and that goes to your harvesting and preservation plan of when, how, and where you're going to store all this stuff so it makes sense. Next thing is composting. That kind of talked a little bit about that in your layout, but I think that's a project by itself. Do you have a spot already? Maybe it just needs to be refurbished. Maybe you need to make one. You can make one from new stuff, from scraps, but figuring out where your composting is, how does that work? How can you easily get to it? Again, I've been talking a lot on my other channel about elderly. Today's video and tomorrow's video is about caregiving and preparing for caregiving, grocery list of caregiving. And so the thought process is, if you're building one from scratch, what does that look like as you get older and you're still using that compost and having to turn it and do things, figuring that out when you're doing your layout and figuring out what kind of compost you want. Okay. Next project is thinking about meat animals. How can you introduce more animals, but how can you make sure you're introducing something that's going to provide meat? Is it rabbits? Is it pigs? Is it ducks? Is it turkeys? Is it cattle? Again, this depends on what you can do at your place. For us, we could only do so much, but the plan is to introduce meat chickens, right? Chickens that are not going to be our main egg layers, that are going to be raised for meat. Maybe bringing in rabbits for meat. Maybe bringing in a couple ducks or our turkeys for the year. Whatever we can do for the amount of space that we can do it, and legally for where we're at. But we're outside city limits, so we're blessed in the sense of we live kind of in an urban, outside of a city, urban environment-ish, because I live in a neighborhood. I have neighbors. But it's unincorporated, so there's a lot of stuff that falls under just the basic county rules, and so there's a lot more that I can do, even though I'm kind of in that setting that other people maybe cannot do in just a normal suburban type neighborhood. So check out what you're able to do and see. There's smaller animals. Yeah, maybe I can't have a cow back there, okay? But what can I have back there, and getting that stuff. So thinking about what's the next plan for meat animals, making a list, make a priority list of things you'd like, do your research, make sure you can get it. and then make a list, especially if you have sprawling land and you're like, you want to have more animals. Put those animals in a priority of which ones you plan to get next, and then next, and then next, right? It's very important to do this one by one. Get them, get their feed, learn how to take care of them, get their veterinarian settled up, get all the stuff you need to be able to take care of this animal, and figuring out how to do it, okay? And then the last thing I have is start cooking from scratch, right? It's important that you start taking the stuff from the garden and feeding your family with it. And doing that as much as possible so that that grocery bill from the store starts going down. Now, you don't want to stop getting stuff from the grocery store. You don't want to stop stockpiling. I think it's very important to meld the two, like I said the other day, with preparedness, stockpiling stuff from the store, and learning to grow stuff and having your homestead. I think the two mold together, and I think that it's important to continue to do that. But the idea should be to bolster that garden so that if the time came where that is what you're living off of, it's bolstered as much. Every year you should be thinking about, how do I add more food to this harvest, right? How do I add more to this backyard or to this property where I can grow more, okay? I grew potatoes this year. How can I grow more potatoes this next year? And every year, every crop you have, you're figuring out, how can I grow more of this, okay? Maybe it's adding another bed. Maybe it's adding just a trellis, whatever the case may be, okay? Now, I think the most important advisement I got when I first started this channel, and I was saying I was doing this, and I'm new, right? I'm definitely not an expert. I'm just an average mom who has had the goal and has had the dream of having, a homestead. And hubby, we've wanted this for a long time, to just have a place that's on the grid, that we build it for off grid, and we get the animals, and we get the garden, and we live self-sufficient, and we do as much and learn as much as we can to take care of ourselves so that we're not depending on other people. Or when there's a total collapse, we're not freaking out because we've been building up slowly to be able to do and provide for ourselves, right? But a piece of advisement I got from a subscriber from Jump was, it's one day at a time. It's one project at a time. Don't try to do all this stuff, this whole list at once, right? And the advisement was, do one project at a time and do it just expertly, right? Nail that project. Spend your time really planning out that project, what you're going to do. Really make sure it's the way you want to do it. Slowly and methodically take your time to do that project and complete it, and then it's done. Otherwise, you're doing a bunch of stuff. Stuff's being, half-assed, right? You're not doing everything all the way. It's not as good as it could be if you would have just concentrated on one thing. And then you're circling back because you're having to fix something or address something because you didn't do it right the first time, or you rushed it the first time. And also because of money. Ain't nobody made out of money trying to do all this stuff at once. One thing at a time. And I think that that's what I'm learning is I had all these, it's not that I had them. I still have all these grand ideas from our property, this half acre we have, a ton. But can it be done all at once? Baby, no, it cannot, okay? And it takes time, right? Just because you have the idea and you're like, yes, I want this here, I want this here, does not mean that you have the energy, the time, the money to just lay it all out and do it all at once, okay? If you do, God bless you. But I would venture that the average person doesn't have the time and energy and or money to just, do all that all at once, okay? So I hope you guys are well. I hope that was helpful. I cannot wait to hear in the comments. I'm going to share this on my other channel. So hopefully folks over there come over here and help with the comments of things you've done. Maybe you have advisement too, as far as, hey, I started with this animal, then this animal's a good one to get next, and this animal's a good one to get next. Or maybe it's a gardening tip or comment, whatever it is. I think that things happen when they're supposed to happen. So like we came back, I was restricted of where I could do my garden. I didn't let that bum me out. I did that. Well, then I started learning, you have pests, you have different things. So then I tried to really look at, could I buy stuff? But I really wanted to start learning, right? The whole point is to learn how to do stuff for yourself. So I wanted to learn how to do, your own fertilizers, your homemade fertilizers, your homemade pest controls, what keeps certain bugs away, natural stuff that you can learn. And then you're making it and you're learning and you're keeping that recipe, and now you have that knowledge. And so that's what I mean. It takes time because you're going through that. You're learning how to harvest. I'm learning like the seeds thing I learned, right? We wanted chickens, had to figure out where to put them, what kind of coop we wanted, how can we build onto this coop later? What happens when we do this? Learning that chickens don't lay eggs, for months and months and months. everything has been a learning process, but I'm enjoying it. And it's not a fast process. It's a day by day, slow down and smell the roses, and just really appreciate the process of knowing that you have something that you can develop into something. Okay. And, you know, if you, for those of you that are renters, maybe renting an apartment, maybe renting a home, and you can't do these things, you're like, I can't get a chicken coop, or I can't just grow a garden, and those things. I would urge, and I don't like to tell people what to do at all, but I would say it's very self-satisfying when you have something that is yours that you can then build upon, and it does not have to be big. And so, what I'm saying is prayers to you. Think out and dream a little bit about what you want to do, and start today working towards that goal. You know, if it's, I can't move because it's my, work towards that goal of saving the money or doing whatever it is you need to do, the steps before that, to be able to move, to be able to get some land, to be able to whatever, if it's work, whatever, so that you can do that. Okay. Because really it's corny, but you can do anything that you put your mind to. Okay. So, and maybe it's not now, it's a later, but what can you do now to prepare for that later? Right. For us, for many years, it was like that because we were in the military. We were stuck. It's not like we could just walk away and do what we wanted. We were stuck, and we had to do what the government said, obviously, and had to go where they want us to go. And so, but we dreamed, and we were like, we knew what we wanted to do, right? And so, and then the time comes, right? It's just a matter of time, day by day. So I hope you guys are well. Blessings from my bear cave to yours, and I'll see you guys on the next video next week.